Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Clarity and Confidence Live. I'm excited about today's topic because it's something that I spend a lot of time talking about. Well, myself personally, because I am not immune from this, but also with my clients. And so if you're here, give me a like or a thumbs up, or even if you're watching on replay. So I know that you're here and listening. But I want to talk a little bit more about imposter syndrome and doubt. And I think it's a conversation that happens a lot. And I think that this term imposter syndrome has become so popular in circles, and so I want to talk about what it is, what it isn't, but most importantly, I want to give you tools so that you can advance with confidence. So, one of the ways I love to think about imposter syndrome is I think back to when my daughter was, I'd say, about 4 or 5, and she had this condition that I lovingly call the but firsts. And so this is what it sounded like. I would tell her to go clean her room. And she's like, Mom, but first, I have to go put on socks. Or Mom, but first, I have to get a snack. Mom, but first, I'm thirsty. I gotta get a drink. And like at bedtime, it wouldn't be any better. I would tell her, hey, Haley, it's time to go to bed. And she's like, oh, Mom, but first, I have to clean my room, right? Like suddenly a priority. Mom, but first I gotta comb my doll's hair. I mean, all sorts of these crazy excuses. And so, tell me or give me a like if you've ever been around a child who has these but first. Oh, but first. But here's the thing. I don't think we ever really grow out of our but firsts. I think that they just get more sophisticated. Because for me, it sounded a lot like when I was in corporate America. And just even thinking back to, obviously, this example was when we were in person, sitting in an all day gray conference room. And one of those meetings where the conversation just kept going around and around and around. And it just kind of felt like we were saying the same things over and over again. And we were hearing from the same voices. And, when we finally got a break, I'm like, gosh, why am I so annoyed? And when I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, all the people that we're hearing from are men. We're hearing from the same voices over and over again. And I asked myself, like, well, are there more men in this room than women? And in fact, there wasn't. And so when I was on a break, I was actually sitting in a bathroom stall of all places, right? The source of all great wisdom. It's almost like I heard like this voice that's like, well, you could be the one to speak up. And all I thought to myself was, oh, but first, I need more qualifications. But first, I need to know that they aren't going to think that my idea is totally wacko. Oh, but first, I need to build more credibility. Like these but firsts really don't ever go away. And again, tell me or drop a like if you have ever felt this, or even in the comments, like tell me, like, what is your but first list? Do you have a goal that you want to get a promotion? Oh, but first I need to go get this certification, or I need to go back to school. Or maybe you want to ask for a raise. Oh, but first I have to, and you list all the conditions that must be perfect. I think sometimes this brings up, a conversation about, well, is this imposter syndrome? Was what I was feeling in the room that day? Was it imposter syndrome? Was it doubt? I wish I could tell you that, like, after I, had that little moment in the bathroom stall, that I walked back into that room and I said all the things that need to be said and I never had a problem speaking up again, except for that would be a lie. And that is not the case. Like I struggled with speaking up in organizations because I was just in my head so much. Oh, but first, but first, but first. My big thing is, oh, but first I need to know that people won't think my idea is stupid. And it took me a lot of time, and I'm writing about this in my book, about how to find my voice and really overcome that. But was that imposter syndrome or was it self-doubt? And I wanted to share a comment from an individual that offered it up at one of my most recent conferences. And so recently I was speaking at a women's leadership conference. And, if you've ever seen me present, you probably see me over in the corner with a lot of doubt. I've overcome the imposter syndrome at this point with a lot of doubt over in the corner, a lot of nerves, drinking my water, calming myself down through breathing. But I get up there and I actually ask the audience this question. I said, what is the difference between doubt and imposter syndrome. And I had them talk at their tables about the difference between doubt and imposter syndrome. And then I walked around and, I asked if anybody wanted to share. And I would be curious to tell, if you want to drop in the comments, whether you're watching this live or on replay, what do you think the difference between doubt and imposter syndrome is? Well, this one brilliant woman, they were all brilliant. She stood up and she goes, "You know what? Doubt is," and I want to quote her words exactly. "Doubt is a common feeling that precedes stepping outside your comfort zone. But imposter syndrome is self-sabotage." And the whole room, you could just kind of like hear like this murmur where everybody was like, "Oh." Because I think in that moment, we all felt really seen. Like doubt is a normal, healthy human emotion. We all experience doubt. If you don't experience doubt, we're probably like talking about some stuff like sociopathic tendencies. So all healthy individuals experience doubt. We experience doubt when we try something new. We experience doubt when we go into a new job. We experience doubt when we try something new for the first time, or we step outside our comfort zone, or we ask for something that feels uncomfortable. We do things that we know that are growth opportunities for us, but don't all feel that natural. Like that's a huge source of healthy human doubt. And I think so many organizations spend so much time trying to eliminate doubt because it is uncomfortable when it's actually not even a reality. Whereas imposter syndrome was actually a term that was coined in 1978 by Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes. They did a study. It was called, and they revealed it as the imposter phenomenon. They found it especially prevalent in women, that despite achievements, hard work, success, credentials, women often felt like they were going to be found out, or that everything that they had accomplished was based on luck. They didn't feel like they belonged, and that if they, showed up or got to that next level of promotion, that if they opened their mouth or did the thing, that they would be exposed for the fraud that they were, and they didn't really belong there. And some situational things were happening in 1978 when this report was happening, and the first is women were just getting into the boardrooms. And so I think a lot of times, women didn't see themselves, especially people of color did not see themselves. No, they did not. And they still embarrassingly don't see themselves, not for them, but the rate of people of color in leadership is embarrassingly low. And so I think the research that has not, I know the research that has evolved from that time is that imposter syndrome is not just a women's issue. In fact, 70% of people feel imposter syndrome. However, imposter syndrome is more prevalent when a few situations are happening, says the research. Imposter syndrome is more prevalent when people are in fields that is dominated by one gender, and there's some gender norms there, and some people expect to be stereotyped based on those gender norms. Imposter syndrome is more prevalent when people have experienced racial discrimination and they haven't seen representation of themselves in the room. Imposter syndrome is more prevalent in fields where brilliance is prized, like academia, where the standards for brilliance and expertise is incredibly and probably unfairly high. There tends to be a lot of imposter syndrome, which can be the belief that, oh my gosh, I'm just not qualified to be here. All of my success thus far has just been luck. If I open my mouth or I speak up or I get to that room, I'm going to be found out. It doesn't feel psychologically safe for me to be here. And that can create some self-sabotage, just like the participant in my women's leadership conference said. It can cause us to hold back, not apply for jobs that we're fully qualified for. It can cause us to not speak up in the rooms where decisions are made. It can cause us to not advocate. It can cause us to play small, to, not move into our fullest potential or our capability, because there is just this underlying belief that, we don't belong or we're going to be found out. So tell me in the comments or drop me a like or a heart. Like, does this resonate? I know I have felt this. Like I'm writing a book right now. I'm writing my last chapter, talking with publishers this week. I am feeling a lot of, I'm sorting out if it's doubt or imposter syndrome. I'm feeling a lot of doubt, 100%. I know for sure. I think the imposter syndrome sneaks in where it's just tempting to be like, oh, I don't know if I want to put this out into the world. Like, who am I to write this? I feel like a big old fraud. And I know that anybody else who's written a book or done something like this or done anything new has probably also felt those same concerns. I hear imposter syndrome come up a lot when people switch jobs. I mean, we're in the great resignation and people are switching careers and they're going into new fields, they're going into new industries. And a lot of my clients are saying things like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to go in my first week and it's going to be exposed that they never should have hired me. And I have no idea what I'm talking about. And all my success thus far has just been luck. And I think the difference between, doubt and imposter syndrome is, doubt is that healthy, normal human emotion. We all feel it. Imposter syndrome becomes self-sabotage when we self-select out, when we don't go for the thing, or we just say, oh, never mind. Here's the thing though. I don't want y'all to think that imposter syndrome is your fault because there's a lot of systemic issues that cause imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is caused by, the things that I just described where, people have experienced racism, people haven't seen themselves in the rooms, a high level of brilliance is prized. And a lot of these things are systemic issues. I don't want to walk around and tell people, oh, just fix all your imposter syndrome and this will all go away. Organizations also have a responsibility to ensure that they're creating inclusive and psychologically safe work environments that people feel safe to participate in, that people feel safe to raise their hands, that people feel safe to stretch out of their comfort zone without fear of retribution. So it's definitely a both and. I think we need to advocate for changes in the system and we need to see more diversity in the senior most ranks. I think one of the best ways to, improve that is to see more women and people of color in senior leadership positions and as CEOs. So yeah, we need to change the system while also providing tools to support people in the system. So I don't think it's black and white or either or. I think it's both and. Let's fix the system and provide tools for support. So given that, I want to share a few things, probably my 5 favorite ways to move forward and advance with confidence. I know when I'm feeling imposter syndrome, and my clients use these too when they're feeling, high levels of doubt or imposter syndrome. So it's very simple. It's just my notice it, name it, normalize it, reframe it, and act on it philosophy. So I'll just walk through all of these. And again, drop your questions in the comments, whether you're watching live or on replay, and I'd be happy to go back in and answer those. So the first one is, I just want you to notice it. I think sometimes when we're feeling like these really high levels of doubt or maybe even a little bit of imposter syndrome, if you're anything like me or people I know, sometimes we get really self-critical, like, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. This is bad to feel this way. Why do I feel this way? It's because I'm not good enough. We get into sometimes like this shame spiral, but you can't shame yourself into more confidence. So I just want you just to notice it. Notice it with a ton of compassion. Just notice it and just totally neutral. You know what? I just notice that I'm feeling a lot of doubt. I just noticed that maybe I could be feeling some imposter syndrome here. And then I just want you to normalize, to name it. I think giving it a name, sometimes we don't stop and think about getting in touch with the emotions that we're feeling, or that by naming it might give it power, but actually by giving it a name, you might be surprised to find that it actually takes its power away. So when I'm feeling imposter syndrome, it's kind of literally like hard stop, like, there it is again. I notice that I'm feeling some doubt or some imposter syndrome about this coming up, and just, it is what it is. Then naming it. And what I have to do, because I'm not someone who is overly connected to my feelings, sometimes I have to literally put my hand over my heart. You can Google the emotions wheel or list of emotions, because I need that. I'm not, like I said, I'm not very in tune. I'm not an emotions master, so I need help. And I sometimes will just like pull out an emotions wheel or Google the list of emotions, and I just name those emotions, because whether I'm feeling doubt or even if I'm feeling a little imposterish, it's kind of an umbrella of emotions. Those might be the big capital E emotion, but underneath of that, I can often name that I'm feeling insecure, worried, overwhelmed, insignificant, maybe even a little excited, right? Sometimes I think there's always a positive emotion in there. You're feeling like a tinge of excitement. And sometimes just by putting my hand over my heart and just naming those emotions, It doesn't make me more anxious. Sometimes it helps me just slow down, take some deep breaths. By naming the emotions, it almost provides a level of clarity to what I'm feeling. I love this practice, and the book Emotional Agility by Susan David is a wonderful book to check out if you want to talk about, moving forward with more courage and comfort in spite of feeling what we can tend to label as difficult emotions. So notice it, name it. Then I just want you to normalize it. One of the things that's really helpful to me is just to remember how normal this is. Like 70% of people feel imposter syndrome. Everyone experiences doubt. And just remembering, what, this is normal to feel doubt because I'm getting ready to step up on stage in front of hundreds of people. It's normal to feel a little imposter syndrome. I'm writing my first book. It's normal to feel imposter syndrome. I'm starting a new job and this is important to me. I love what Michelle Obama says about imposter syndrome in her book, Becoming. She says, even she's not immune to imposter syndrome. She goes, you know what? I've been in every big room you can think of. I've sat at the UN. I've sat on corporate boards, nonprofit boards. I've been in government meetings. And she goes, you know what? When it comes to imposter syndrome, she goes, they're not that smart. And I think sometimes I love that quote because I think sometimes we tend to overestimate other people's intelligence and underestimate our own. At least I know I do. And so just remembering that like we belong there, we've been invited there, and sometimes we're overestimating everyone else's intelligence can help just kind of normalize this feeling. The fourth thing I want you to do is to reframe it. You know what? This is what growth feels like. It's not about toxic positivity because it is about going in and feeling these sometimes difficult to feel emotions. And in our humanity, remembering like, this is what growth feels like. This means I'm stretching my comfort zone. This means I'm facing the goals today that I set yesterday, right? Haven't you ever noticed that like today's goals become tomorrow's imposter syndrome, right? We set goals today. Like I set a goal earlier this year to speak at a women's leadership conference and then I did it. And then when I got there, I felt all the imposter feelings. Like they just come with it, right? So just reframing that. And then the last thing that I'll offer is, is to act on it. The feelings, the actions of confidence come first, right? Getting in and doing the thing. The feelings of confidence come second. I think a lot of people wait until they feel 100% confident before they do a thing. But if we would ever wait 100% confident before we do a thing, we would never do a thing. I would never write a book. I'd never get on LinkedIn Live. I would never stand up in front of people and speak. I would never have started my own business if I was waiting till I felt 100% confident. It's recognizing that the actions of confidence come first. The feelings of confidence come second. So I want to offer too a bonus tip that I know I personally use, a lot of my clients use, and that is, it comes from the thought that when we can own our unique gifts, they can be the antidote to imposter syndrome. It's remembering why we're there. And I'll just give you a wonderful example. I had a client yesterday. I've been talking to my clients. I use the Enneagram in my private coaching. And I was asking them, based on what they learned about themselves from the Enneagram, what's something that's helpful to you to get you through imposter syndrome? And one of my clients says, by owning that it is my unique talent to build consensus, to gain consensus and like summarize kind of what the whole group has talked about and then propose next steps. She goes, I always know that that's where I belong in every single meeting because that's the unique value that I add. And, I think it's so important to document feedback, to keep emails of things that we've done very well, to remember what is unique about us and what unique talent we bring to any situation. Because when we can remember what's unique about us, it helps give us more confidence in those moments because we can say when our mind is going like, oh, you don't deserve to be here. It's like, no, I deserve to be here because one, I was invited. And two, I'm here to offer this unique talent that only I can offer, whether it's clarity or consensus building or asking difficult questions or providing a creative spin or, being extra sensitive to the people's needs in the room and calling that out. I mean, there's a million, unique talent themes that you can have. And so by owning that and collecting evidence of that, evidence of success, I always tell my clients to keep a career journal. that's just full of all of their accomplishments, their wins, how they overcame challenges, good feedback, because it's a great place to go back and look at whenever you're feeling doubt and imposter feelings. So, just to recap everything, again, drop in the comments or give me a like if any of this is making sense. Um, the difference between doubt and imposter syndrome is that doubt is a normal, healthy human emotion, and we're all going to feel it as we're stretching our comfort zone. Imposter syndrome can be a form of self sabotage that can be the ultimate career killer when we hold ourselves back from doing things that we are fully capable of doing because we, fear being found out as a fraud or unqualified. And so, a few tips to get through this is just to notice it with a ton of compassion. Just notice, oh, I think I'm experiencing doubt or imposter syndrome. And then to go in and name it and actually name some of the emotions that you're feeling in the moment. This is doubt. This is overwhelm, insecurity. I feel like an imposter. And then normalizing it, recognizing that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome. Everyone experiences doubt. And it's normal and healthy as you're stretching your comfort zone. Reframing it. But this is what growth feels like. I'm feeling a little bit of doubt and I'm feeling a little bit like an imposter because I'm achieving a goal that I set 6 months ago. And then lastly, acting on it, recognizing that the actions of confidence come first. The feelings of confidence come second. You can do great things while also feeling a little bit nervous, a little bit doubtful. But you don't need to let that hold you back from taking your bravest next step. So my best tip is to keep a career journal. Keep a list of all of those accomplishments. Keep a list of all the great things you've done in your career, all the awesome feedback you've gotten from other people, because owning your gifts can be an antidote to imposter syndrome. So if you want more tips on this, make sure that you're subscribed to my newsletter. It's kellyraythompson.com/subscribe. And my book is going to be coming out in hopefully September of 2022. And in a couple of months, I'm going to definitely be sharing some of the ways that you can get early access to that, early insights, and all sorts of fun stuff. I'll drop that link in the comments. So again, if you have any thoughts, questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a message, you can drop it in the comments, or you can check more about my coaching programs at kellyraythompson.com. Have an awesome day, and I will see you next week.